Along a stretch of the Gwydir Highway, east of Glen Innes in New South Wales, stand the weathered remains of a building that's almost slipped from memory. Its timber walls lean and sag with age, its veranda is long gone, its floorboards threaten to splinter underfoot. A brick chimney stands to one side, appearing to be the only thing keeping the building from crumbling, standing watch over a place that was once filled with life. To most people driving by, it's simply another abandoned building in the Aussie countryside. But nearly a century and a half ago, this was one of the busiest stopping places on the road between Glen Innes and the coast. And within its walls unfolded the stories of pioneers, stagecoaches, a bushranger, heartbreak, resilience, and a family whose lives became inseparable from the inn itself. This was the Junction Inn at Bald Knob. During the 1870s, a regular coaching service crossed the Great Dividing Range between Glen Innes and Grafton. The journey was long, rough and exhausting. Horses needed changing, mail had to be delivered, and travellers needed somewhere to eat, rest and spend the night. At Bald Knob, where two important roads met, the location was ideal. In 1877, Irish immigrant Bartholomew McCormack and his young wife, Elizabeth, bought the grazing property and opened the Junction Inn. Bart's own journey to Australia had begun 25 years earlier. Arriving from Ireland as an 11-year-old boy with his parents, he spent years travelling throughout New South Wales and Victoria before eventually marrying Elizabeth Connolly in Sydney. The couple later settled at Vegetable Creek, today's Emmaville, named because of the expansive Chinese market gardens that supplied food to the hungry mining population. A booming tin mining settlement crowded with European miners and Chinese prospectors searching for cassiterite, or stream tin. Bart worked as the local pound keeper, while also trying his luck mining for gold, gems and tin. When the opportunity arose to run an inn at Bald Knob, it must have seemed like the beginning of a new chapter. With their baby daughter Margaret, Bart and Elizabeth welcomed weary coach travellers, drovers and teamsters through the inn's doors. Before long, however, the Junction Inn found itself at the centre of one of the district's most dramatic encounters. Throughout the district, few names inspired more fear than Tommy McPherson. Better known as Black Tommy, or Yarrow Creek Tommy, the bushranger had spent months evading police after escaping custody. Armed and dangerous, he rode between isolated stations demanding food, horses and supplies, while a reward was offered for his capture. Stories of his exploits spread quickly through the districts. Then, on the afternoon of 13 February 1879, he walked into the Junction Inn. Bart happened to be away in Glen Innes. Tommy and a few other blokes were boozing at the inn, until things got heated. Another guest recognised the wanted bushranger and quietly alerted the police. By the time officers arrived, Tom had already left. They found him asleep about 1.5 miles from the inn. When ordered to surrender, he responded by hurling a tomahawk at the officers. Gunfire followed. Shot 3 times, Tommy was carried back to the Junction Inn, where he died a short time later. For one extraordinary evening, the quiet roadside inn became the final chapter in the life of an outlaw. Yet for Bart and Elizabeth, life simply continued. They raised a growing family, eventually welcoming 9 kids, while the inn remained the familiar refuge for travellers crossing the ranges. As the mining industry expanded throughout the districts, so too did the need for reliable communication. In 1879, the inn became a receiving office for the mail. Just 1 year later, it was upgraded to a fully fledged post office, with Bart serving as postmaster. The inn had become more than a hotel. It was a meeting place, a mail exchange, a landmark, a vital link between scattered communities across the tablelands. But happiness was often accompanied by tragedy. During the widespread diphtheria epidemics of the late 19th century, Bart and Elizabeth's only son, John, contracted the disease. Sadly, he died at the inn just months before his 4th birthday. Like so many families of the era, the McCormacks endured unimaginable loss while carrying on with daily life. Years later, another hardship arrived. Bart's health, according to the Glen Innes Examiner, steadily declined as chronic gout took its toll. Although he briefly recovered after treatment in hospital, he returned home only to deteriorate once more. In 1897, surrounded by family within the walls of the inn he'd built into the heart of the district, Bartholomew McCormack passed away. Elizabeth was left to continue the business while raising 8 daughters. It was a struggle, but she managed. Two years later, she married local drover George Larkin, who became the Junction Inn's new licensee. Even disaster couldn't stop them. In 1900, fire badly damaged much of the building, but the inn was rebuilt and once again welcomed travellers along the road. For decades, it remained a familiar sight to coach passengers arriving tired, dusty, and grateful for a warm meal, a comfortable bed, and friendly company. Then the world began to change. Motor vehicles gradually replaced horse-drawn coaches. Mail coaches disappeared. The telephone arrived. Road travel became faster, and the inn no longer occupied the essential place it once had. The building had been created for an age that was quietly disappearing. By the 1920s, tragedy returned once more. Elizabeth's health failed, forcing the sale of the inn. Her husband George, himself struggling with declining mental health, packed up the hotel as ownership changed hands. Then, in May 1925, he took his own life at the inn's outhouse, likely the one you see on the right. Just a few months later, Elizabeth also passed away due to her health. It brought to an end almost half a century of connection with the Junction Inn. The inn was much more than a business. It was a home. Children were born here. The family welcomed strangers through its doors. They celebrated happy occasions. And within these timber walls, heartbreak was also buried. New owners carried on for a time, but the inn's future was uncertain. The Licensing Reduction Board began closing rural hotels considered no longer necessary. The Junction Inn, built for stagecoaches and drovers rather than motorcars, found itself on borrowed time. In 1946, it closed for good. The laughter and stories of travellers faded. The horses stopped arriving. The mail found faster routes. And one of the district's most important roadside landmarks quietly slipped into history. Today, if you drive the Gwydir Highway about 20 kilometres east of Glen Innes, you'll still see the old girl, hanging on for dear life. The New England summers have bleached her weatherboards. The wind rattles her rusted iron roof. The brick chimney still anchors her structure. The road beside this relic is a busy one, yet few consider the lives that once passed through its doors. For nearly 70 years, this humble inn welcomed strangers, changed horses, witnessed triumph and tragedy, and became woven into the lives of an entire community. Now she stands in silence, not as a forgotten ruin, but as a reminder of a time when every long journey depended on places just like this one.